I have a theory that everything is a theory. How's that for a soundbite? Now I gotta come up with the rest. So yeah, so I've been working on this program. Call it the six birds thing, the six birds theory. It's a meta theory, and it all evolved out from my attempts to try to find the emergence laws of life, of what at the very core creates something that is a living thing. The thing this grew out beyond my expectations into physics, and it's not something that I planned for, maybe not even expected, although certainly maybe secretly hoped for while I was unconscious. What do I say that? Because it was one of those things that, like, it shows when it showed up in front of me, it felt like it was always already there, but I wasn't looking at it before. So anyways, I should talk more about the program itself. So the idea was to try to find a couple of well, more than a couple, but the primitive operators, rules, roles, whatever primitives that if you apply on a substrate, they would cause that substrate to start doing interesting stuff. And the substrate could really be anything, because the whole idea was that this thing, if it was going to ever work, it would have to be kind of recursive in a sense, or it would have to be able to work in a multi-layered fashion, meaning that I could not imagine a life. Well, actually, I could not imagine being inspired by Michael Levin. The multi-layer architecture of life was pretty much obvious to me. It's not just from DNA we get us. There's bioelectricity. There's a lot of stuff in between that gets us to be what we are, and there is information hiding in places that we don't even know where to look at. So that was a requirement from the start, the multi-layered thing. So that meant to me that we would have to be looking for rules that would be applicable on any kind of substrate, neural substrate, very basic Markov noise kind of substrate, anything. And in fact, the idea was that the substrate itself any substrate would essentially be defined by being an application of those primitives on a substrate below it. So that would potentially point towards some kind of basic substrate, which is where that link with physics was hiding essentially, because how far down we're going to go and say we stop there, that would essentially be the hard line where living and non-living are separated. But whether there was such a hard line was still an open question. So looking, while I was trying to find those six primitives, there was a lot of thinking about what would even a primitive constitute. And one of the things that was kind of becoming obvious was that it should be something that we can't really describe with current language. And when I say language, I mean even mathematics, which is the language of the universe, or so we think. We shouldn't be able to describe it with English, or we could at least try. We shouldn't be able to describe it with code, but it itself would have to be able to be implementable by any of these things. Because you see, the idea is that you have some stuff, right? You have some rules, and these rules give rise to something. Now that something, you can maybe use it to describe these rules or look at them. Think of the rules as like I don't know, some kind of like glass that has all the kinds of glasses that could ever exist, and then we form a lens out of it. Yeah, we can use the lens to look at the glass, but every time we do that, we're also recording information about the lens itself, not just the glass. So maybe we should use many different lenses to try to figure out what the glass is. This goes more into the methodology of it. But the oh my God, I'm getting lost. I'm connecting many different ideas here, and I apologize for dragging you through this I don't know, mess of a brain, I guess. But all these ideas come together, they connect. Not much, I promise. So in looking for these primitives, I was looking for something that can essentially not be described by what we currently know. But it would itself be able to be implementable in any kind of substrate. In fact, it was kind of like obvious to me that no substrate could escape this thing. It's not like, oh, and there we come, that there is a substrate in this universe that, these laws no longer apply to it. No, everything would be subject to it. But that would not mean that everything would result to something more interesting, because and that was kind of like where the idea of what is evolution and what is life itself was coming more into focus. To me, it looks like evolution is the search for more efficient substrates, where these laws can essentially be expressed again, to create yet another substrate, higher level substrate that may be a more fertile ground for these laws to be expressed in. And you can then I guess we can get more practical. You can ask, so what's a cat? What am I? And to me, you're a collection of theories, all stacked on top of each other. Oh, just to be clear, not talking about consciousness or what goes on in your mind. We're talking about the living thing that you are. But connecting back to that, what the brain perhaps is perhaps a very efficient substrate for something like language to settle on. And language itself is a theory and very much subject to the same rules. Same rules that create the atom, same rules that cause gravity to emerge, the same rules, the same primitives that create the information layer of DNA, that theory to emerge, and for other theories to be built on top of that. And that's interesting, I mean, to say the least. But I don't know if you caught it, but the second we introduced language into the mix, language is not a physical thing. Language is something that lives between us, yet it obeys the same laws. I haven't proved any of this to you, but I'm asking you to kind of trust me for now. But let's just for a second assume that language does obey these things, perhaps even consciousness, or perhaps I think that consciousness is more of like a mix of different theories. But let's just say that the time we have in our head, say that this is a part of consciousness, say that this is a theory that obeys the same rules. Yeah, but these things, if you ask somebody to is that the same as, I don't know, this cup of coffee that I'm holding here? No, this is material. That other thing, it's not. But they obey the same laws. Well, if that's the case, maybe the disconnect we have between the material world and the world of ideas is an artificial disconnect, very much like my point about life being an artificial distinction on things in the previous video I did today. Third video, by the way, in a day, I decided to go live on this stuff. I mean, I've been posting papers online, but I decided to put my face on it, I guess. Yeah, so that these are some pretty heavy stuff to say that, you know, we may have something that the laws by which is, you know, getting lost here, the saying that ideas themselves and material things obey the same laws, or come to be through the same closure mechanics. That's getting a bit more technical. I don't know, that opens up ideas about, I mean, questions about what is simulation, or even if that is a valid question. So that's my 11 minutes. Trying to bring down every possible, I don't know, artificial line that we've drawn through these years. If any of that, or if that is true, then we're not talking about, you know, a ground theory of unification across physics. Then we would be talking about a ground theory of unification across everything, and that everything would actually include everything, you know. And that, of course, would unlock many things, because we'd be able to take things from one place and move them to another, whereas, you know, these things seemed completely unconnected before. But it's only the beginning, and yeah, we're still looking into it. Stay tuned.